Thanks, Lorna, and thank you everyone for joining us. It's fantastic to have you all in the room today. As Lorna said, I'm Claire Ogley. I'm the Head of Campaigns, Policy and Research at the Vegan Society. I've been in this role just gone 2.5 years now. And what I really wanted to talk to you all about today is very much why is research important to us at the Vegan Society? Why do we have a research team and a research network? Why is there something that's crucial to what we do? And then I think probably most interestingly, what are the ways for you to get involved as researchers, and where are the opportunities to do that? I'm guessing this is the clicker. Yeah. So I've just talked about what we're going to cover, including particularly a couple of future plans we've got for research that are in the pipeline that, again, we think we might be able to brief out to our research community. So I think it's really key to start with why we do this at all. And I think one of the things I would say there is, as of an educational charity, and a charity that's been around for 80 years, as Lorna said, it's really, really important that we stay true to that as a root of what we do. And I think one of the really unique selling points that we have as a society is that educational focus, educational purpose. Our purpose is to help people go vegan and stay vegan. And one of the ways we do that is by building the evidence base to encourage people along that journey. And we really see it as a large part of our unique offer to the movement. There are other charities, other pressure groups that take other tacks, but for us, building that evidence base is really, really crucial, as well as making it accessible and communicating it externally as well. Research is also really at the heart of our values. So it's in our stated in our values that we are always evidence-based. We're always focusing on those facts and knowledge and research. Again, some people will take a different tack, will be maybe more emotive, but for us, that is really the heart of what we do. So that's all just to say, research is a really key part of our strategy. So it's not just in our approach, but it's at the heart of our strategic objectives, some of which are to create more reports and peer-reviewed articles on veganism, as well as make sure we're being acknowledged as providing really high-quality resources and information. And the reason we do that is because we think it gives us the best way of being a credible, trusted expert. So if we're putting out those high-quality evidence, high-quality articles, linking people to them, making sure we're always including the most up-to-date research, we then believe that that will help us to be viewed credibly by external partners and give us that ability to reach out externally. So our fourth point there is it gives us that really strong basis from which to be respected by any of those external bodies we work with. So that might be in schools, it might be health bodies that we work with, it might be policymakers, businesses, the media. We've got lots of fronts we work on, but I think it's, for us anyway, I would say it's a really core part of what we do is helping to create that research base and then using it and making sure it's accessible to the movement, and that people are really founding their arguments for veganism on the most up-to-date research. I wanted to give you some examples of various areas we've either used some research in, commissioned some, or carried out ourselves. And this is, I would really stress, a very brief snapshot. It's by no means exhaustive of everywhere we use research. It's some, I think, good examples in the last year or so. So one of them being, as you can see there, the we call it the empathy index, the green and red bars. That's some research we carried out ourselves. We really wanted to understand your average public's tolerance to different kinds of animal use. So we were testing to see what kinds of animal use people at the moment were prepared to tolerate or not accept. And we really hope to use that in our future work, both to pull out some of the contradictions inherent in those things, but also so that we ourselves can benchmark our work later down the line, so we can see whether actually, we are becoming a more empathetic, compassionate society or not. So that's one example of something we Alex particularly did a lot of work for. I think I hope will be a really useful tool for us in the future as well. Another piece of work I'd like to highlight is a research paper we worked on with the Office for Health Economics. So that's this one. And there we really wanted to model what the potential savings would be to the NHS if everyone was to take up a plant-based diet in England. So that's a piece of research we worked with a kind of trusted external partner on, and we really wanted to get a kind of nice big headline figure that we could then refer policymakers to, refer anyone making healthcare decisions to try and again kind of make the case for promoting plant-based diets in healthcare especially. And to give another example of how we're then going to use that piece of research, we have a fringe event at the Labour Party conference later this month, which is going to be really founded on our findings there. We're going to be promoting, you know, this big headline figure we found of £6 billion savings to the NHS if everyone was to take up a plant-based diet in England. And we're hoping to then use that as the conversation starter in that fringe event later this month. A couple of other examples, two fantastic reports that we've produced. Might be biased, but I think they're really good. The Veganism and Masculinity report, very much kind of a combination of qualitative and quantitative surveys for vegan men and non-vegan men to understand partially whether non-vegan men were interested in being, potentially interested in being vegan, or, you know, what the barriers they saw as barriers to their taking that up. And then a more qualitative survey of vegan men, again, to kind of understand what the barriers they thought were to them becoming vegan and how we then might use that to overcome it for other, particularly for other men. And that was very much in response to us seeing a bit of a disparity in terms of the demographics that were taking veganism up. So that was us responding to that. Obviously, what's in a name, analysis of plant-based and vegan labels. Another key piece of work for us, given our trademark, that is the kind of business development side of what we do. So we work with a lot of clients, a lot of businesses, large and small, to trademark their products and say, this is vegan, or no, it isn't. And for that, you know, an understanding of vegan labels and how consumers see them is a really core part of being able to successfully trademark products, and also kind of promote that to businesses that are wanting to create more plant-based products and vegan products. And then I would also kind of reference here in this little section there, I've just kind of included a snippet of one of the emails we sent to MPs discussing our kind of recent manifesto that we created. Again, we used some polling that we had access to through our test platform to just back up what we were saying and say, actually, some of these policies are very widely supported by the public. So then to just really kind of make our point stronger, essentially, when we were using that in communications. And then finally, just an example of where we've used research. It's not our own, but the last one there in our environmental sustainability campaign, we were, again, making sure it's really kind of backed up and everything we were saying was cited and kind of really based in good recent research. So that gives you quite a broad overview. But I do want to stress again that it isn't by any means the exhaustive of all the kind of various places that we use research. And then future plans. These are kind of initial ideas for some of the things we really want to do next year. It doesn't kind of include everything, but one of the things that we're really keen to potentially work with external partners on is a international comparison of veganism across the world. So, and that would take in, we hope, a lot of different kind of factors. So including individual adoption rates, numbers of vegans, vegan communities and populations in different countries. It would also look at cultural attitudes, the kind of, whether there's existing, I suppose, kind of vegan concepts or trends in those cultures, as well as, ideally, the industry in each country to work out whether that's kind of an established industry or whether it's still growing there. So quite, as you can see, a very large piece of research in theory, but that's something we would like to do, partially because we want it to guide our future strategic decisions. So for example, if we're thinking about expanding anywhere, whatever work we want to do kind of internationally, it can then guide us as to what the priority areas might be, or potentially where campaigns might work particularly well, or we might want to do further research. So I think it would be a really useful piece for us to have, and it's one we are going to be actively looking at briefing out in the near future. Another piece I'm really keen on is, at the moment I suppose I'm calling it why people don't stay vegan. Obviously, potentially controversial topic, but I think it's really important for us to kind of grapple with that as a problem, especially as a vegan society, with our mission being help people to go vegan and stay vegan. We need to know why they're not staying vegan in order to keep growing that supporter base. So we're looking at potentially doing some sort of qualitative piece to dig into ex-vegans, I suppose, or people for whom it hasn't succeeded in sticking, and to really understand what that is. I think also beyond, just kind of things we might assume are the reasons, I think it's key to not preempt the answers for that one and to make sure it's like totally neutral. So again, I think we might be thinking about working with an external partner because, I think people might struggle to tell us as a vegan society the real reason why they didn't go vegan or didn't stay vegan. And like I said, I think that we'll use that as a kind of a guide for future campaigns that we do and policy work. So if we know what the real problems are, what the barriers are, hopefully we can then work towards dismantling them and ensuring more people can stay vegan. And then the last point I want to make on this is we will, of course, continue to produce the fantastic research briefings that Alex has done a few of already, and still continue to do policy papers, articles, anything else kind of ad hoc that's in response to things we identify as needs and gaps in the evidence. So we've got a couple of ideas for things we want to build the evidence base on in our research briefings. But it does very much respond to what our needs are at the time and what our priorities are. Cool. And possibly the most exciting bit, how can you contribute? I'm sure we think this all sounds fantastic. How can I get more involved? But I think the first thing I'd say is it's wonderful to see so many of our research network here today. I think carrying on being an active part of the research network is incredibly helpful for us. Like I said, it really does give us that kind of credibility externally to be connected to so many fantastic researchers. So I think, firstly I would say carry on being an active member, help us write further articles, be ideally around to do on the Pulse webinars, contribute, help review our work where that's kind of relevant, or indeed if you've got a really good update on your piece of work or your area, like send that to us, let us know. We would love to hear about what you're doing or if there's a kind of key new development. Second thing I would say is where possible, if there is an external kind of paid opportunity that we're kind of prepared to fund and we want to work with an external partner, we will always try to put that out to our research community first and give you the opportunity to work with us on that. It won't always be possible, but it's very much kind of something we're intending to do. And the last point I would say is do feel free to send us proposals proactively if you've got something that you think is like a really key area that aligns massively with our priorities that we should be working on. I will caveat that a little bit with we obviously don't have extensive kind of unlimited funding pot for those types of ad hoc pieces. So there would need to be a really strong business case aligned with what our strategic priorities are. But very much interested in hearing ideas from the research community. I don't think myself or the rest of the team necessarily have all the answers about what research is needed as a movement. So I do welcome that. I just don't want everyone to be doing like loads of extensive proposals for not a large pot of money. But so that's in brief. I just want to thank you all again for kind of participating in what I'm sure will be a really fantastic day of kind of lots of different varied learning opportunities. And also I want to thank my amazing research team, Lorna and Alex, who do so much to kind of put all this together. So thank you. Any questions that I can take on that? It's okay. You can also talk to me at the break. I'll go ahead, Jack.
I've got a very niche question. It's probably for Alex. It was on the empathy index. I was just looking. I didn't see. It's a factory farming. Hello again. A niche question for Alex about the empathy index. Did you include factory farming on there?
No. So we've focused the empathy index on non-food based animal use. So you see things like fashion and cosmetics, that kind of thing. We think that the research on, we just wanted this to be focused on non-animal food, mostly because it's kind of, we do a lot of that work already, and we wanted something just focused on, yeah, that kind of other forms of animal use. You want to jump in on that as well?
Yeah, just to fully kind of expand on that, yeah. So one of the pieces of work we're doing at the moment also is out to field is how many vegans, which is our kind of big survey of literally what it sounds like, how many vegans there are in the UK. And as part of that, we've got quite a few different questions about diet and kind of things that people eat, because we were really trying to zero in on not just vegan diets, but also plant-based and what that means to people, and then what they may or may not exclude in their diet. So we felt that that was kind of sufficient enough, and we hope that will give us really robust data on different things people eat, rather will tolerate, I suppose, in eating. But yeah, it's an interesting one. We thought about including food uses, but then it would get so large and unwieldy. But yeah, we'll have to see in the future, like whether we want to add future other questions to it in the future. But I think at the moment, yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out of how many vegans. Was there another question?
Hi Claire. My question is about the audience, the different, well, particularly policymaker audiences that you speak to. Wondering if you could say a few words about which different types of policymakers you might be engaging with or prioritising, whether it's health or environment, or is it at the council level? And within those conversations, what are the common things that come up that objections or questions or things that people on the other side of the conversation are bringing up that you're thinking, oh, we don't have an answer for that. That's the type of thing we need more evidence on.
A really good question, John. Yeah, so we talk to a very wide range of political audiences. So that does take in kind of central government. We write to ministers regularly, and MPs, obviously, as part of that, and then the devolved and local governments as well. And it very much depends on the kind of campaign that we're doing. So for the most recent health research that I mentioned, obviously kind of very targeted at health decision makers. So we have gone out to health ministers and people with health related roles to tell them about this research. And we will, like I said, again, be doing that for the Labour Fringe event. And I'm kind of interested to see what the discussion is there, because we haven't had a health-focused policy event that I've done so far. We might have done one in the past, but not while I've been in post. So I'm interested to see kind of what comes up. When I mentioned that previously, I often get the kind of UPFs coming back of like, oh, vegan food is ultra processed, and that comes up a lot, which is partially why I wanted to get that piece of research about the potential savings. So I wanted to redirect the conversation and kind of focus on something positive, which is there, and like that is suggested in the existing studies that it would be plant-based diets are beneficial for health. So that was the point behind that. But yeah, I will kind of keep track of what comes up in those discussions on the health focus. Yeah, depending on other areas. So to give you one example, our Catering for Everyone campaign that we did last year, the phase of it we did last year, we did a large survey of all the councils in England, Scotland and Wales, and tried to understand whether they were including veganism or considering veganism as a protected characteristic, whether they were catering to vegans in their usual kind of practice and sites that they were responsible for, and whether they then were going further than that to have meat and dairy reduction targets. And that was quite interesting because we got a fairly good response from that, to be honest. We had like good interactions with some councils who said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I think we should have more options or more plant-based options. I suppose some of the resistance we had was, again, around like local interests. So if the council is in a particularly a rural area where they've got a lot of livestock interests in their kind of purview, they're probably less likely to want to take those steps to have more plant-based options, because they're going to get a lot of pushback from kind of local animal farmers potentially. So I would identify that as a problem, because I think it's something that, I mean, just in general, farming needs to be kind of solved on a national basis because of those kind of local interests. So while somebody locally might want to have more options, really it's a problem that kind of needs to be tackled at a higher level. yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have further conversations about that. Those are just some examples that come to mind. Yeah. How much time do we have? No more. Okay, good.